Live. First off, I'd like to thank David for having us all here. Welcome to TBRCon 21 or 22 at this stage. So I'm.
Right, no one knows what year it is.
Great start.
Yeah. I should have really taken notes. I'm Daniel Kelly.
Are you sure?
This time. Also, the Fall of the Phoenix and A Hero's Welcome. And I'll let you introduce yourselves now. Alicia?
Okay, fine. I'm Alicia Wanstall-Burke. I'm an Australian living in the UK. There's two authors in this house, so we have competitions over who's going to get the most sales and whose ads are performing the best. Let's just say it's not my ads. I am the author of the Chromatic Sagas. I've just launched the last book in this trilogy today. And I need to do a quick shout out to my son because I did an interview the other day and I didn't mention him and now I'm in trouble. So shout out to the kid that I had. You're awesome. Thank you for all the help and inspiration you give me every single day. And I can't wait to see you in March when I come back to Australia. Love you, buddy.
Mike?
I'm Mike Shackle. I'm a Brit living in Vancouver. Just to keep this sort of moving around the world thing. I'm the author of We Are the Dead, a lovely little tale, and A Fool's Hope. And the final book's coming out in the summer. I promise lots of death and destruction.
Nice. Very good. Brian?
Oh, yeah, me. My name is Brian D. Anderson. The D is for a double dose of my fun stories. I'm a hybrid author. I was an indie for about 10 years. Wrote the Godling Chronicles, Dragon Vein, the Veil series, Kiri, which I co-authored with Stephen Saville. And then most recently, I have made the transition over to traditional publishing with a 3-book series with Tor Books. The Sorcerer's Song, the first 2, Bard's Blade, and A Course of Fire are out. The last one's coming out in November. And I just did a 3-book audio deal with Blackstone, a series, post-apocalyptic horror called Talos. And yeah, that's it.
It's a lot. It is. Zamil?
I'm Zamil Akhtar. I live in Dubai. I'm the author of Gunmetal Gods, which is a grimdark fantasy based on Middle Eastern mythology.
I love that.
As well as the sequel, Conqueror's Blood. I'm actually in my second year of self-publishing. It's been like everyone who's self-published and is early in their career will tell you it's like quite a high, and it's a hustle as well. So I just came off the day writing like 3,000-4,000 words, so I'm exhausted, but happy to be here and talk about my favorite and most hated tropes.
Sean.
I guess I'm next. Hey, everybody. Sean Grigsby. I'm the author of a lot of shit. Smoke Eater series, which is about firefighters versus dragons in the future. Daughters of Forgotten Light, which is equally loved and despised. That's about all women motorcycle gangs in space, dystopian. And the next novel I have coming out is co-authored with Stuart Hotston, an agency brother with John Gerald Literary Agency, and that is Watchdog Stars and Stripes, based on the Ubisoft video game Watch Dogs. Aiden Pierce is back and hacking and killing a bunch of white supremacists, honestly, is what the plot's about. But hey, I'm happy to be here.
Right, great to meet you all. Okay, so we'll start off with the tropes in your own books and how you work with that. Alicia, you do a lot, sort of coming of age in a grimdarky setting.
Yeah, it's I don't think I set out to write a coming of age story. I don't. That wasn't the plan. So did I set out and go, oh, I want to hit that trope? No, not really. But apparently I did. But
And the next novel.
Something that really irritates me about the assumptions that are made about books with younger characters in them, though, is that they are for YA audiences, and that's definitely not the case with my books. So, is coming of age a trope that only sits in that category? I don't think so, personally. There's a bit of punching the patriarchy in my books. There's a good few reviews of Blood of Heirs that say that, it starts out reasonably predictable with the tropes that it's hitting, and then things start to turn on their heads. I took the standard European setting of fantasy and chucked it out the window because I lived in central Queensland and we're told to write what we know. So I decided to write what I knew, which was outside my window. And so the setting for my books doesn't really fit that standard trope of that I guess that we're used to seeing from Tolkien onwards.
Okay. I haven't gotten to Mike's books yet. I'm trying to get through everything on the panel this last month.
And I was the last one. That's what you're telling me. You read everyone else's mine.
No, I haven't read.
I'm going to leave now. I have to leave. No, fancy tropes.
Stephen the best.
Yeah, I think when I got the idea for We Are the Dead, I was thinking about how a lot of books are all about the big bad guy coming and the heroes all get together and they make the valiant last stand. Aragorn comes over the ridge and saves the day, or Logan Nine Fingers. And I just wondered what happened if the bad guy won. What if he came over that ridge, killed everyone, killed all the heroes, won the big battle, and then the aftermath of that. So that was the whole inspiration for the book. And the characters in it are just ordinary people. There isn't a chosen one in it. They're just, there's a teenage psychopath blowing people up. There's a coward. I think we love these ideas that if the call came, we would be brave and answer it and do our bit. But I've got this real feeling that I'd be hiding in the cupboard, just hoping everyone, passed me by and forgot about me, and I'd bow down to Sauron or whatever it was, and say, "Yep, great, you're in charge now. Leave me alone." And that's really where the characters came from. It was just ordinary people. I do love magic swords, though. I'm a big fan of those. I think that came from reading Elric when I was a kid, and Tales of King Arthur and things like that. So I think every book I've ever written has got a magic sword in there somewhere or other.
Okay.
You'll know all this.
Brian, you do sort of coming of age, and the God chosen one.
The first series I did, the Goblin Chronicles, was exactly that. That was a long time ago. That was my first self-published series. The original idea came from my, at the time, 7-year-old son. So that it would have a predictable trope is not that unlikely, considering the original source. But I found it to be, people like it. When you're talking about tropes. Talking about, why do you like fantasy? Elves are, having elves, having dwarves, having all these things. This is what got people in the fantasy to begin with. And while I, do try to subvert some expectations, I try to remember why people like to read stories. What do the people like about it? And like with my the second series I wrote, Dragonvein. Now another young guy, but this is a sci fantasy, so it's a lot darker. It has a lot, not necessarily a chosen one, but not necessarily not a chosen one at the same time, depending on how you view it. But then I go into Akiri, which is a Conan-esque sort of badass, kicking ass, taking names with his pet dragon, And then the latest one, well, the one I'm working on now, I'm using a lot of the same type of character tropes and fantasy tropes that you see, but I don't necessarily adhere to them. Like I'm not trying to rip Tolkien off. I have 3 storylines going on simultaneously in a 230,000 word novel. So, I mean, I sort of bounce all over the place when it comes to the tropes, and personally love the tropes. I mean, I have no problem with tropey stuff, long as it's not so predictable as to be boring. I mean, we got to remember what people like about storytelling. You know what I mean? And say you write grimdark. What do people like about grimdark? You know what I mean? So you can sort of like, you have that in mind, and you're going through that. What people like those type of heroes. If you're writing a more high epic fantasy, what do they call it, noble bright or whatever?
Yeah.
What people like about that. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with tropes. I think they get a kind of a bad rap, because everybody wants to be an individual and don't want to be me too. But fact is, the tropes are what made the genre popular to begin with.
Yeah. And then when somebody does come out with something new, it's like when Grimdark came out first, it becomes the trope fairly quickly. Zamil, Gunmetal Gods. I have to say, I love it. It's sort of Constantinople. Yeah. It's like Constantinople, the battle between the East and West.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. And I remember reading some of the first reviews of Gunmetal Gods, or the first critical reviews, where people pointed out that it was tropey. And for the longest time, I wondered, like, what does that even mean? Like, what do you mean by tropey? And I kind of realized that when people say something is tropey, it just means that I use tropes that they didn't like. Whereas if I use tropes that they enjoyed, they wouldn't have called it tropey. They wouldn't even have noticed. They would have just been like, oh yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And I honestly filled the book with my favorite tropes, because that's why I read fantasy, because there are tropes that I just love. The grizzled, old, retired warrior coming back for one last mission. That's a trope I absolutely love. And I put it in my book. The kind of evil enchantress, priestess who, manipulates people. I put that in my book. The whole East and West thing and having like a religious zealot, I put that in my book. Hidden royalty, that's another trope that I used in there. So, for me, the tropes were really about writing a book that I myself enjoyed. Now I kind of realize that as long as you connect with readers who enjoy those tropes, and there are people out there who enjoy them, there's nothing wrong with using any trope that you like. And I used to go on YouTube and watch these videos like 10 worst tropes, avoid such and such tropes. And I'd find like 4 tropes that I used in there and just be like, whatever. So that's the way I see it now.
Sean.
Yes.
I'm in the same boat with you as Mike. Huh?
You're in the same boat?
Yes, with you as Mike.
Oh, okay.
I've downloaded them, but I haven't gotten to them yet. I've been listening at 1.5 times speed to get through things here.
That's all right. Hey, no, let me say you're a fantastic moderator, because you've done more work than I would have, for sure. So I kind of I think another way to describe a trope, or another word for it, could be spirit. Obviously, that shit's not going to catch on because literary crowds are way too. Yeah, and so I think the spirit is what it is, and some people like certain type of a spirit, a book brings out, and then others they don't. Like Zamil, I that was an old grizzled firefighter, about to retire, and then he finds out he can breathe dragon smoke and withstand heat, and he's got a job to do. And a lot of people, who were critical of it, kind of called him a Gary Stew. But like Zamil and probably the rest of you, I wrote a book that I wanted to read, and I wanted to play with that old, kind of trope of a guy who doesn't deserve the things he's given, both in skill and things that happen to him. He's just a lucky son of a bitch that doesn't deserve it. But throughout it, he learns. What's that?
So you wrote about me?
Yeah, I wrote about you, Brian. And yeah, it's just, I think it's one of those things. It's you can use tropes or that spirit. Like Brian kind of got me thinking about this. It's as long as it's different. It's what annoys me is when I see the same shit over and over and over. And granted, we live in a capitalistic world, so if something works and pays off and it's different, everybody's going to move in like piranha. How many books have been about fucking assassins that have come out at the same time, and I get the authors confused, and I'm friends with them, and it's like, God, I've read so many books about assassins in fantasy worlds and things like that, and it's that to me is when a trope jumps the shark. And I hope it didn't go off.
Well, like with vampires, every so often makes its comeback. You have one person that'll write a popular vampire book, and then everyone else will try to write vampire books behind them, or when everybody was writing magic schools that
oh my God, yeah,
called Pig Pimples instead of Hogwarts or whatever. It was so similar that was like, okay, you're trying to cash in on something everybody's liking. Yeah, I don't think anybody really likes that. But like the chosen one trope and the reluctant hero trope, those are great tropes. But any trope can be good if properly handled. As long as you're not, just doing something that's just so predictable as to be just boring. You don't want to get, but yeah, you can do any trope you want. Just make it interesting, sort of do your own take on it. I mean, we've been telling stories for 40,000 years or however since we were able to grunt and bang rocks together. If anybody thinks that they're going to tell a story that's completely different, they're out of their minds.
Yeah. There's actually like a sci-fi written in like ancient Rome about legionaries going to space and fighting giant mutant spiders. So it's sort of
nice,
like that's been done already.
Well, you'll see these authors, and they'll say, "Who are your influences?" And they'll have a lot of the same influences, who they read, who they really love. So it's really not that weird that some of their stories would start to look a little similar, because you're just going to be a product of the stories you've heard and your combined with your personal experiences.
Okay, but is there any specific tropes you don't like?
It's Stu. Get Stu the fuck out of fantasy. That's my hill I'm dying on.
Well, a stew needs to cook for over 4 hours. If you've just been on a horse all day, you can't make a stew. It's a fucking soup, mate.
Right.
It's water with heads in it. Like, that's not a stew.
Pack some biscuits.
And some cheese.
That works. No. Some cheese. And I even like reading about people eating.
I don't mind it, but then I'm a chef. But one of my favorite was army or a load of refugees who were reduced to eating roasted turnips on the fire. It was like, that's probably how turnips started out. Literally all they had was turnips in an open fire. Things were black on the outside.
Oh no, that's unpleasant.
Yeah, the struggle's real. Burnt turnips.
I don't know if I have like
about tropes, but there's certain things that I can tell when a writer hasn't done their research, like how far can a horse travel in a day. Mm-hmm. The
I was looking into that.
Yeah.
What's your take on it? How far can a horse travel in a day?
About 30 miles, 40
See,
at best.
there was something about a long distance challenge in America where they did like 500 kilometers over 10 days or something.
Yeah, but those are specialized horses.
Those are like Olympic levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You look at conditioning, how much weight the horse is carrying, if they've got to go at speed at any point, the terrain they're covering, all that sort of stuff.
then,
Yeah,
also
that's like
got your
taking
riders
that guy who broke the world
stuff.
record of the 100-meter dash and saying because he did that speed, that's how fast a human can run.
If you build into a story, like the research has to back it up. If you build into the story that this person's riding a war horse that's been trained to do blah 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 blah, then great. But if it's just like drag, if it's just from dragging the plow around the paddock, it ain't gonna go far in a day, and it's not gonna go fast, and it's not gonna be. It's gonna freak out when it hears loud noises, and like if you need to understand. That's like why you need to know what you write. If you don't know it, find out.
But are like 99% of readers gonna notice some of that stuff?
I always try and work for the 1% that do, because they're gonna.
Because they'll mention it in the reviews and be like,
they will come for you, and you're gonna be like, I remember messaging a friend of mine, and I was like, because she's a nurse, and I'm like, so if I stuck a really like a piece of metal that's this long up through someone's chin, would it kill them? And she was like, she's like, yeah, I mean, they're not going to have a good day. And I'm like, cool, thanks. Okay.
That's on the top reasons you won't ever want the police looking at your search history.
Meanwhile, I'm waving at my ASIO officer going, it's okay, Barry, I'm just researching a book. But yeah, I think that's where you can fall down. But like tropes, do I hate tropes? I don't know if there's any tropes I hate. There's tropes I'm disappointed by. I'm disappointed by, fridging your wife. Disappointed by women being used as, motivation for someone to go off on a murder quest. I didn't watch John Wick on purpose because I thought it was a wife is murdered, husband goes off on murderous rampage movie.
No. Dog is murdered.
Dog is murdered.
And my husband said to me, he's like, actually, that's not actually what happens. And I'm like, but what happens? And he tells me, and I'm like, we are watching this movie because it was just that slight turn on that trope. Because I'm just so tired of seeing the over muscled action man going off to defend his wife. Where are the kidnapped husbands?
And the killed dog is a overplayed cliche too. And like then everybody kills a dog.
It's justifiable. I mean, that's a good reason to go to war.
Yeah.
Well,
because it was the inciting incident rather than like, poor old Yella who's been with you the whole time has suddenly been killed by the baddie. It's like, that's a bit tired. Again, like, don't murder your, I don't know. Those things annoy me. But again, you can do them in slightly different ways and riff off what's been overdone and make it just a little bit interesting. And then it's something new all over again.
One of the things that sort of annoys me in some fantasy novels, they have a writer, you'll have they'll want to put a strong female lead, and instead of like diving deep into the character, they just make it basically take a guy and give it different genitalia and call it strong woman instead of actually writing a realistic female. And it's as if like femininity or this person or this character being feminine in any kind of way is somehow a weakness as opposed to just part of the character's personality. And I'm like, it's lazy character writing. And that's one of the things I can't stand, that whole that's and you see that trope a lot in fantasy where it makes sense for some characters, but not as much as often as you see it. And what you see the same thing with the guy characters. If he's a badass, he has to be 6'4", with you know what I mean? He can't be an intelligent warrior who beats his opponents by using something other than a 15-pound piece of steel. I like it when people make characters a little more realistic as people and how they use their head, or somebody fighting this giant of an enemy and somehow miraculously overpowering them. Even in real life, there's just no way in hell that's the way that fight would play out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That fight would not go there. Not to say the smaller, physically weaker character couldn't win, but they would have to use their brains as much as their bodies to do so. Because what idiot would trade blow for blow with somebody outweighing them by 100 pounds? You just wouldn't.
I think a lot of authors use tropes as a crutch, and they do it to condense information. So instead of elaborating like, why is this character this way, they just basically copy and paste the trope from another book and put it in their book. And then readers, the advantage of that is readers kind of already understand. And if the reader is okay with that and they're along for the ride, it's fine. They'll read the book. They'll probably enjoy it because they love that trope so much. And, but if you don't like that trope, or if you're even indifferent to that trope, you'll catch the lazy writing. And that's a problem I have actually with a lot of fantasy stories, in that, like here are dragons. And yeah, so dragons breathe fire, dragons are scary, dragons have scales. I already know all of that, but if you don't put an interesting spin on it, for me, it's not that interesting as someone who personally isn't like that enthused with dragons. Like, it's not my favorite trope. So I read a book where there were eldritch dragons.
People cut and paste Tolkien all the time, like eternal know-it-all elves. Who needs any more of that?
Yeah. But I love when there's like a spin. Like, I read a book where the dragons were like eldritch monsters. I forget the name, but I enjoyed that kind of twist on dragons. So when authors do that, I think it's really cool. And I do like seeing that a lot instead of just the copy and paste trope.
I also am baffled by the ignorance it takes to set out to write a strong. It's like the antithesis of a strong female character by, like what Brian was saying, just making them a male character but dressed in as a female. That I don't understand the whole copy and paste thing, because most people are both good and bad, have things to work on. But I agree with Zamil that like a lot of readers, when they encounter the characters they know and have read before, it's like, oh, okay, it's this character.
I think it's a lot. I think why you see that is because of a kind of a reaction to how poorly female characters were treated in fantasy, especially in the 70s and 80s. Basically, you have the ones that could go into battle were going in there in the bustier of eternal strength, wearing the stripper boots of power and the thong of light. And
that's not even
where her male counterpart has.
Because I don't need my femoral artery protected. It's fine. I have steel thighs.
The thong of light.
And I think that's the thing I'm getting to, is that like most people, it's just like they either pick A or B. There's no nuance. There's no common sense. Like, okay, this is a strong female character. Let's say we're talking about, but they don't like have this certain type of hairstyle and this certain type of attitude. They're just who they are, but they have common sense enough to wear fucking good real armor and how to run a country, and they're not worried about like, oh, my prince, and all that shit. Like, they got real problems they're dealing with. I think that's just like probably authors who haven't been around many women.
Imagine that.
So locked in the bedroom typing.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things my wife says is that she does not like to be put on a pedestal.
Can I just take a minute to say to the viewers, if you have any questions, could you put them in the comments section, and we might get to them in about another half hour or so. Please carry on. So
that's what I call an uncomfortable silence.
Yeah.
What happened?
My head right now is Songs of Light. That's all I can think right now.
Songs of Light.
How do I get that into a book?
Can worlds be tropes?
I think world
Worlds?
building can be tropey, and I think that's certainly people have been trying to subvert that. Certainly over the last 5 to 10 years that I've seen. I've tried to do it.
I could be wrong.
I think the technology tends to be a little tropey. You go into Middle Ages technology, but that's hard to get away from in fantasy.
I think that's the tenet of the genre. It's like saying that you can't have spaceships in space, like sci-fi. It kind of they kind of go together. It's like there's things that are just inextricably linked to the genre that we're never quite going to get away from. But maybe we can rethink them in a different way, or we can take elements of other types of technology and overlay them with what people would normally expect and make things maybe a little bit more modern or even a little bit more ancient. You know, my books.
Even if you take it out of the Eurocentric and go to Asian or South American, wherever you put it, you're still, if in most fantasy, you're still seeing a basic level of technology. If you're dealing with magic as your when you're starting to get into magic as it being a thing, you're replacing electricity with magic, basically, and or a technology with magic. So your mind sort of, I don't know about you guys, but my mind sort of goes down. If I'm doing that with magic and making this life easier because of magic, then the rest of this stuff got to take it down a notch, because you're not going to have. Why would you need magic if you're living in a futuristic type world?
But even if you're focusing on like the Middle Ages, that's a very vast period. So when you go toward the late Middle Ages, you have gunpowder, you have like rudimentary kinds of bombs, you have all kinds of different things that can shake up even a story set in the Middle Ages.
Flintlock fantasy,
yeah, definitely.
One of my favorite
away from Europe necessarily in the Middle Ages, and shifting and going, well, what was going on in this part of the planet at this time, and can we reimagine, like just turn our focus away from where we've been told everyone, this is the most important part of the planet. It's like, it's actually not. There's all this other stuff around here that you don't always need to have cold in the north and hot in the south, because where I come from, that's not how it works. So,
people down here said, why is that hard to get away from? It's just difficult. It's not impossible. Anne McCaffrey did it all the damn time. She was brilliant with the sci fantasy that she came up with. She's one of my greatest inspirations, and I even do that in Dragon Vein, which is a sci fantasy which includes magic and technology later on in the story. But it's kind of difficult because your mind just sort of naturally goes to when you're working on magic systems. You're steering away from advanced technology. Not that you can't do it, but I think it's a tendency.
An author who did a really good job with this is John Horner Jacobs, and I cannot remember the name of the series, but essentially it's like an alternate history where Rome continued their power; they never fell, but now it's in the Western, like 1800s, and they use machines that are powered by demons.
That's cool.
I'm gonna have to Google the name of it. I should remember it. It's Infernal Machine.
Yeah, personally, the thing I enjoyed when I was writing Gunmetal Gods the most was doing the world building fully based on Middle Eastern history and myths, and totally totally making everything basically from scratch, because I had no reference really to go off of other than things like Arabian Nights and other obvious stories. For me, that was the most fulfilling thing. And hearing people say like, we love the world building, I love, we loved the world, we loved like the setting. That's the most satisfying feedback that I get, because I put like so much effort into that part specifically.
Yeah, I think you got to go to get Middle Eastern, like into the fantasy lore. You have to go pre 10th century, before, you know, I mean, which is unfortunate.
I actually went 16th and 17th century. So
Really,
I went
really,
late
I just
Middle
most of
Ages.
the lore that I've seen, like that go into like the jinn and all the different, is really early,
Yeah.
early in the early in the Islamic tradition and pre-Islamic tradition.
Yeah, I mixed some of that in, but I went like with the Gunpowder Empires period. So when you had like the Ottoman Empire, the Mughal Empire, the Safavid Empire, I focused on that period. So and even other fantasy writers who've written stories based on the Middle East, they pretty much ignore that period entirely. So doing that was really fulfilling, just because no one else had really done it. So
That's one of
yeah,
the most interesting periods of the history, though. I don't know why you wouldn't. Like, that's really exciting. I think it's a great time period to look at.
yeah, like personally, I love gunpowder. I love, like, you know, incorporating that with magic, kind of like how Powder Mage did it as well.
Yeah.
That was also one of the funnest things. Like when you introduce gunpowder into the story, the magic also has to adjust, because it's not just about like killing people at long range. You know, now you have cannons that can do that. So there's like kind of like an arms race with the magic and the technology, which makes it even more interesting, I feel.
I just got this weird flash of the cartoon Wizards in my head when you said that. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with Wizards. It was back in the 70s or early 80s.
Yeah, that man. Yeah, you'd have to pop some shrooms to watch that one. I remember what you're talking about.
Black Wolf and Avatar or whatever.
Yeah,
Avatar the Great. Let me show you a trick Mama taught me when you weren't around. Bam.
I always just thought it was like a very long Grateful Dead video when I was a kid. I didn't know what was going on.
Oh, Mike hadn't said anything in a while.
Yeah, no, I think that the challenge with a lot of this, and I think there's more flexibility if you're sort of independently publishing. But when you go through traditional publishers, they will have discussions on what sells, right? And they know that gunpowder is a very niche audience. That yes, a few authors have done well, but the majority of people don't like it. They'll have discussions on your setting that they will push you towards Western settings because they know that sells. And particularly if you're, you know, in my case, I'm a white guy, you know, and I wrote an Asian inspired book because I lived there for most of my life. But you then get questioned on your credentials as an author to do that, right? I actually got recommended that I had a character buying a bag of rice and I had to change it to buying a loaf of bread because it was, you know, pushing it too far the other way. You know, there are lots of things you have to juggle, all based on these equations on what sells. So, yes, tropes, it's great when you twist them, but there are a huge amount of people out there that love that comfort of walking into a world where they don't need to think too much.
Especially when you're dealing with big companies. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I just finished reading a brilliant book of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. And it reads in many ways like fantasy's greatest hits, right? Chosen One, Dragon, Dwarfs, clever elves. Like you can literally tick them all off, but it was done in such a nice modern way. So you have that comfort of entering this Tolkienist world that you know and understand, but it just felt a really nice, fresh take. And I think that's a skill. You know, we all grow up reading fantasy books, and the first books we want to write are basically spins on the things that we love, right? And we hope we're going to do that in an original way. I don't think there's any author out there who wants to be lazy or just cut and paste, because it's too much effort to write a book to do that, right? You know, but you kind of do the best you can and make it original, and hope people respond to it.
I think one author who did it out of the gate the right way, as far as like screwing with the tropes, but did it successfully, was Terry Brooks when his debut novel came out, Magic Kingdom for Sale. That was a unique way to tell that story. He actually looked it up in the paper, Magic Kingdom for Sale, and I don't know if anybody's ever read that. I mean, most people know him for the Shannara stuff, but his debut novel was just brilliant. I mean, I remember reading it. I was probably 14, 15 years old. I had a chance to actually meet him in New York a few years back. Super nice guy too.
He can drink beer. Like most people drink water.
Drink with him.
Yeah, real nice guy. Real nice guy.
But, I mean, his most famous books are the twist on Lord of the Rings, and he's done 50 books in that series now, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And people just love that stuff.
I mean, what Mike says about the what sells is important, and it's 100% true. I was doing a workshop with an editor, agent, publishing person in Queensland, and she worked for a romance arm of SFF publisher, and she's like, for it to class as romance, it must do these things, and if it doesn't do these things in this order, they won't publish it, because the romance reader is looking for person meets person and person get together, something pulls them apart, they get back together, they live happily ever after. That is the framework. And some people find that dull and repetitive, and they're like, oh, well, I guess they're going to get together, aren't they? But if that's what your comfort zone is, my comfort zone is people with swords and magic and dragons, and that's where I like to go when I want to read.
Well, there's a reason romance is popular.
There's a reason. Yeah, and like the structure of a genre can other people feel tropey, and that's why I agreed with what Zamil was saying, is that if you like it, it's not tropey, but if you don't, it's tropey. So it's that.
I think it also becomes popular.
I'm satisfying one person over here who really, really wanted that from this story, but someone else over here was really bored with it and didn't want to deal with it. I set out writing what I was writing when I was 15 because I read The Lord of the Rings and there were no girls doing anything interesting. And I kept waiting for the female characters to show up and join the fellowship, and they just never did. And I was like, that's shit. Great book. Where are the girls? And I went and wrote my own. So, that's, it will, like, going through that, like, I'm not shitting on Tolkien, like, oh my God, don't come for me. But, that the understanding that the way that something was written previously, that was, this is the structure of the genre, and now it's moving into a new phase because other people are growing up and going, hey, I don't want to read fantasy that only is about dudes. I think that's cool. Or I don't want to read fantasy that's only about Europe. Or I don't want to read fantasy that's only about the hero's journey. I think that's a cool thing.
I want to read books that just... Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love reading books that just completely fuck me up. Like, mentally, I want to be disturbed. But just a little bit.
Oh.
Not disgusted, just like everything I've known about this whole existence is wrong kind of thing. I like that kind of thing, but that's just me. And I think, that's what it is. It's such an individual thing. And then, when you find your tribe, that's one, I don't think I'll ever hit the Times list or anything. I don't care. I'm fortunate to be traditionally published, given the weird shit I write. But I think it's just, you didn't see the books you wanted, you wrote them. And I that's the advice. I hate giving advice at all, but if I were to give a baby writer advice, it's just write the book you want. Don't give a shit about, I want, what the market is doing, because it'll rob you of your own spirit.
You can always tell when something has been written to market because it's just soulless, right? Like some might say assassins have jumped the sharks, but if you bloody love assassins, right, and you write the coolest book, that there will always be a market for it. The love has got to come through in what you're doing. You know, I don't even know how you could, you know, spend 6 months a year writing a book because you're trying to write to market and you're not into it would kill me, right? I've got to be really excited to get up at 5 a.m, start typing away, and you know, ignore my family and all that sort of stuff. You know, you just got to whatever tropes turn you on is cool, right? And do it in a fun way.
Yeah.
I was trying to pay attention.
We're gonna have to mention Brian's backgrounds here.
I was just about to say there's some heavy metal tip of the hat. Probably the most disturbing scenes of that movie. But
I feel like after writing,
one thing I know how to do is drive when I'm stoned. You know your perception's fucked, but you just got to let your hands work the controls as if you were straight.
Mike, everything you said was very profound, and I enjoyed it.
And the other thing I will say about strong female characters, because, like, you know, and in my books, probably 60% of the main point of views are women. It's only ever been men that have complained about them being strong, right? Any review that, you know, my main character Tinstra starts off as a coward, and by the second book, she sort of powers up in a great way, and it's only men that have written saying this is unrealistic, this isn't right. You're just trying to, you know, write a man with
pandering to a PC audience.
Yeah,
it's my editor and my agent are both women, so I get when they read my material, they can give me feedback on whether I'm far from the mark, whether I did it right. Because, you know, I mean, you get it wrong sometimes. If you're not writing about something that's an unused thing, you're going to get it. You can get it wrong, and it's good to have that perspective. Reading your work that helps you not get all tropey with, you know, I mean, or like, I wouldn't say tropey, but stereotypical. I personally try not to be to do a caricature of something, rather than, you know, I mean, which I think is what we're all trying to avoid.
The trope I love, and I think every book should start, is with a character staring in a mirror, looking like really pensive and describing what they look like and how attractive they are. I think every book should start with that. That's
how else are you going to describe your main character to the audience unless they deeply examine themselves in the mirror whilst getting dressed?
Slowly, very slowly. Finding their thong of light to put on.
Well, I think one thing some male writers do wrong, not all, but I think the less experienced you are, the more likely you are to do this, is every woman is not drop dead gorgeous. There's not every woman is not 5'10", 125 pounds with large breasts and athletic build. You know what I mean? There are different types of people. Not every man, not every prince is handsome. You know what I mean? That people look a bunch of different ways, and primary characters, not necessarily main characters, but primary characters, they're allowed to be a little bit dumpy looking if you want to make them look that way.
Yeah. Zamil, you've been very quiet there.
Yeah.
And your main character is a little middle-aged and overweight?
Well,
one of them.
I don't want to spoil anything, but he does start that way, and then things kind of change a little later on. But I do kind of fall into that where I make my characters, you know, on the more attractive side of things. And I think just to go off of that, if you look at like the Amazon top 100 fantasy novels, and you see what's really selling, it often is the things. Sometimes it is the things that we don't like. Sometimes it is, you know, you just see the covers. You'll see like a woman wearing a thong and, you know, wearing the skimpiest of armor, and that stuff is selling in the top 50, you know. So it's kind of discouraging, right? Especially if you yourself want to write, you know, more realistic, more down to earth female characters. And it's like that with a lot of other tropes that I personally don't enjoy. You know, I see them, you can just tell from the cover. I see that these are the things that are selling. And me, myself, I write really heavy, dark, you know, grim, dark level stuff. And that's kind of fallen off a bit lately. So, you know, sometimes it is discouraging to see that, that the things that you write aren't the tropes that are, you know, in vogue anymore.
I think the trouble with grimdark at the moment is the world is in such a crappy place, right? Where you know, and this is why I think, you know, the Marvel movies do so well and things like that. People want to see heroes winning the day, right? Vanquishing evil, because we look out the window, you know, whether it's our political leaders, whether it's just the coronavirus we're all living in, right? There aren't any heroes coming to save the day. You know, there's no one standing up and being that sort of person we admire. And I think culture, whether it's movies, books, things like that, they're all looking for heroes again now. And the morally
fantasizing that we are those heroes.
Yeah.
We're also people fantasize that they're Captain America or Thor. And when you're reading a book, you want to relate. You know, it's sometimes if you feel, people sometimes feel weak. I mean, for a multitude of reasons, and they want to feel like they could be that guy with the sword, cutting his way through an army. You know, because you even if you're not that person, you want to sort of pretend, you know, imagine that you could be for a minute.
Well, that's why I think that like the Chosen One still clings on quite strong, because everyone wants to imagine that, you know, the powerful wizard is for them, okay, they're not going to come and get you from the farm, but they're going to come and get you from that dead-end corporate job that you absolutely fucking hate. And you're going to go off and save the world and prove to everybody that you're actually so much cooler than your 14-year-old thinks you are. And you know, that's why people are like, I just want this one moment where I can pretend that I'm this guy and I'm going to go and do this, or I'm this woman who you know, throws off the shackles of her confinement and goes off and takes over the universe. I don't know. It helps us to imagine that we're somewhere else, and I think that's why the Chosen One clings on so.
I agree 100% on that. I mean, we all want to imagine ourselves as that diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
You know, that undiscovered talent.
I would die in an actual zombie.
That secret hero that we feel that's somewhere down there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just want to say, if anyone from my corporate job is watching, I love it. It's very fulfilling. And I live for a 9 to 5. That's all I just want to say.
Okay. Can behavior in a character be a trope?
Yes.
One of the questions.
Short answer, yes.
Yes.
Behavior in itself. Right? What's the long answer?
Yes.
The long answer is yes. Very
You
much.
can ruin this panel by just giving yes and no.
Yes.
I have a character, right? And his name's Rand. And one of the things that I get comments on a lot of the time is that he makes really bad decisions. He makes really bad. And I'm like, yes, he does. He's 15 years old and has spent his entire life living in a castle with a private tutor. He is now out in the world. People are hunting him, and he is going to make terrible decisions. He is demonstrably bad at making decisions. I mean, I love Robin Hobb's work. I really do. But there wouldn't be a 9-book series if Fitz was smart. Wouldn't be. So, like, people, teenagers and people and adults make crappy decisions. They're presented with a situation and they go, yeah, this is fine. I can do this. And then like,
otherwise life would be super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Yeah. So people saying like, oh, it's unbelievable that this person would have made this crappy decision. I'm like, I don't know about you, mate, but I've made some pretty bad ones in my time. Maybe you're awesomer than me. I don't know. But like human beings make bad decisions, and commenting that they don't, or that it's unrealistic that they do, I think kind of misses the point of human nature.
I got that feedback on my books as well, where someone said, why are these characters always undermining their own goals? That's the whole point of the
They're
story.
human?
Like, yeah, like that's the whole story I'm trying to tell. Is these
no.
characters are messed up and they're like, you know, they want something, but you know, they're self-sabotaging. That's the whole point of the story. So it's
the way I put it is, you make the wrong decisions for the right reasons, right?
Yeah, there you
and that always makes great fiction. You know, it'd be really boring if you just knew. You know, Sherlock Holmes is it's kind of interesting, but it's just too smart, right? You need Dr. Watson to fall apart and get captured and ruin everything. You can't have this. Superman can be quite boring because he can just beat everyone with a blink of his eye, right? You need people doing wrong things.
Overpowered.
Yeah.
And the one time Superman did lose, he flew around the world to put time back.
Yeah.
Like if there's no fallibility in your characters, and they're not real.
Yeah.
They're not relatable because they're not human.
I think one of the mistakes young writers make is when they're writing their characters and writing behavioral patterns into their characters, that they imagine character building as this list of weaknesses and strengths, and that's way too simplistic to build a realistic character. I mean, your characters are a culmination of past experience, how they naturally react to certain certain situations. You could have two people with similar backgrounds faced with that are both afraid of heights, have to go over a thin, rickety bridge, and they'll both react differently depending on how well one can manage their fear better than the other and no longer is afraid of heights. Maybe the other completely traumatizes. So when you're building your behaviors into your characters, you have to look around you and look at how people actually react, and I think that'll help young writers avoid those behavioral tropes.
I'm trying to think of another example.
I think there's also the trope of the hyper competent character, and some people love that trope. Like they want to see this character that can like solve like the craziest mystery in 5 minutes, and
kill him
some
in
people just
chapter
like
1.
that.
Well, how about the bard from freaking The Witcher? I'm like, yeah, I saw that same character in Dragonheart.
And it was done better in Dragonheart.
You can't have Yaskia. He is protected at all costs.
Now, I haven't read the books. So I don't know if that's how he's betrayed in the books, but I'm like, they just did the bard from Dragonheart and just put him in The Witcher. Oh my God.
I love him. No, but like I think maybe that's why someone like Sherlock Holmes, who is that hyper competent, incredibly smart person, is actually a completely incompetent person as a person. Like he's got zero, personal skills. He's clearly a drug addict. He can't look after himself. He's like a giant man baby that's got a computer in his head. And so that builds in that fallibility that this person might be so smart that he can solve this mystery, but he's quite literally falling apart at the seams personally. So that creates that interesting dichotomy where he's not just this perfect golden boy. And
one of my favorites is what's his name from The Expanse? The Churn. Damn? I'm having a complete brain fart.
Which character?
The Expanse.
Is it Amos?
Amos.
Amos. I love him.
Amos to me is such a great example of character development. If you see him from the beginning of that series to where he ends up, he's still the same guy, but these slight gradual changes in him lead him into the character you see in the final episode. And I'm by the way, I love The Expanse. To me, it's probably the best sci-fi series since Battlestar Galactica. Yeah,
and that's a piece of like that is a work of art. His character development across both the books and the show. It's gorgeous to watch, and he's a very interesting character. Like he does things that just subvert people's expectations of what that you can be as cold as that, but as loyal as that. Like he's very interesting character on so many levels.
I love that scene where he's like, one night me and you gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
He goes, it's gonna, and he goes, well, I'm free now.
Do it. Very nice. No, I love it. I love it.
A phrase I heard the other day was that humans are attracted to paradoxes. We love something that we can't quite figure out. People, especially. So I think that's why characters like Sherlock Holmes and others like that, especially when their character traits are so at odds against each other. You know, it's not that, you know, he's a great detective, but he's kind of shitty on his taxes. Like
He's also a heroin addict. Yeah.
Right. You know, it's stuff that like, okay, this heroin addiction is going to prevent him from actually being such a, you know, it's that kind of thing. And like, how you're so smart, how can you know, do that kind of stuff? And it just shows, you know, more nuance and it's just not the same tired cardboard characters and stuff. Like my wife's been watching Lucifer, and I know I'm going to get crucified by people if I don't give a shit, because like I love Satan and everything, but that show is so poorly written. I'm sorry. Like he literally walks into a room and the killer's like, "Hey, I did it." What? You spent 20 anyway. So
It's
I'm
one of
done.
those
Moving
You're
on.
not just gonna walk in and say, "Here I am. Here I am." You know?
about Lucifer, like how it fits that formulaic, you know, it fits the
Procedural,
formula,
yeah.
right? Yeah. And I'm like, but there's that weird moment where I'm like, I still want to go there because this is my comfort watch, and I find the characters interesting, even though they're the same characters I've been watching for 6 seasons. I'm like, I don't care. But
It's like popcorn, you can't stop, and you're like, Jesus, somebody end it.
It is. It's really I mean, my husband ruined House for me. House was one of my all-time favorite shows, and he'd never seen it. So we started rewatching it, and he's like, so you realize that like they get a case and then like they have like 3 bad choices and then they get it right? And I'm like,
every time.
I'm not watching it anymore.
It's the Big Bang Theory's thing on
Yeah.
the Lost Ark.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm
yeah,
not
I
gonna
love
watch
that. I love that episode. I was like, holy shit! Just
Indiana Jones makes no difference to the story.
you could hear like nerd culture screaming, "Oh my god!" all over the world when that episode aired. Oh man, it's never
lupus, though. No, it is never lupus. Never lupus.
I think the best episodes of that show though are when they subverted the formula and like totally throw you for a loop. So they set up like there's a lot of episodes in that show that are just the same thing again and again and then one will come along that just throws you for a complete loop, and then it's
that's the one that makes you come back.
Well,
that's
you mentioned Sherlock Holmes. Did anybody see Sherlock? I think it was on Netflix. They take that character into modern setting with
with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the most remarkable buddy Sherlock and Watson and development of the Sherlock character that I'd ever seen. He starts out as a high-functioning sociopath, but slowly his friendship with Watson breaks down whatever emotional barriers that he has over the period of I think 4 or 5 seasons. And it was just something else. Whoever, like I said, but it all boils down to the writing and somebody who understands character development, who understands the gradual progression of a character.
I like it. There's people who are like, oh, there's another version,
Elementary
that I haven't personally seen, so I can't comment on it. I'm mostly just there for Bilbo versus the fucking dragon that I can't now remember.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh yeah, I'm just there for that, like replayed.
Yeah, I couldn't stand that Hobbit. Oh my God! They tried to take a child's book and turn it into 3 adult movies.
But then again, like I don't care. Like so many people, like I have opinions about the Hobbit, and I'm like, yes, but I like the elves, so I'm gonna go and watch it. I'm gonna have fun with my popcorn movie, and I'm not gonna analyze it because if I analyze it, then I might think about it too much.
There were
I'll do that
certain things
later.
that really bugged me, like the romance between the dwarf and the elf. I'm like, okay. I'm like,
I like the barrels.
well,
What?
I mean, he had two short conversations. One when he references his junk, which I guess she was digging.
Really?
And then you have the going in barrels down the river of questionable physics. And by the way, I got a shout out to what's his name, Ryan something. He's the one I heard that from on pitch meeting. The river of questionable physics.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm aware that The Hobbit had issues. Those issues are well documented, but I'll still watch it, and I'll still enjoy it. Like I don't know. Maybe I can just put that stuff to one side and just be like, I don't mind that so much.
I'll take that and that era. Sorry, that of fantasy movies over like the crap coming out now. I mean, I know COVID has a lot to do with it. Like, and it's fun and it's pure and it comes from an original source. You know, I watched the recent Ghostbusters Afterlife, and it's just a brothel of nostalgia and just. I mean, there's a scene in Walmart, and like who did what? Like, have we fallen so far that we're trying to push Ghostbusters down a bunch of 80s kids' throat again and try to get their money?
Yeah. They can have my money. They can have my money. My kid went to see Afterlife the other day, and he rang me up, and he's like, "Mama, I want to buy you the car from Ghostbusters." And I'm like, "Yeah, mate, you can buy me all the Ghostbusters stuff you want. Just
Ecto 1.
Lay it on me. I've got the. I mean, I even like the 2016 Ghostbusters, and you can fight me if you want. I will go 7 and covering his eyes. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a sucker for like people were like, oh, you know, I hope they don't you know, fuck up the Wheel of Time. And I'm like, mate, if we don't watch this stuff, even if it's shit,
they won't make anything else.
Make more.
The only one that really sucked was the last episode of that season. It kind of sucked. I mean, you had that was the only one that I didn't like, but otherwise I think they did a good job with the Wheel of Time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the Eye of the World wasn't exactly how I pictured it from the book.
Well, I mean, at the end you have like Nynaeve, and she's Egwene. Yeah. They're fighting off this horde of Trollocs for some way away from the wall for reasons, and then all of a sudden they can take out an entire army. And you're thinking to yourself, why didn't you just go to the wall and take out the entire army? And then Nynaeve actually burns up, but through the power of Sad, she gets healed.
I haven't seen the end of the show before you describe everything that happened. Right? I've got a couple of episodes to go, spoiler man.
It was super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Oh well, I won't watch that tonight then.
I'm trying to watch and read things and just try to enjoy them innately. I think we've gotten to such a point that everybody thinks they're a goddamn critic and go on Facebook and like, you know, the Eternals was okay the first. I don't give a shit what you let me see it first. Like, quit! Don't influence me. Because you think you're fucking Siskel and Ebert. I might like it. You might hate it. I don't know. We'll see. Let's figure it out.
Well, I think people
haven't seen the Eternals
seriously. You know,
it's just maybe I need to curate my friends list more because it's just like everybody's like, I've seen the movie and here's what every single time. It's like I don't even have
my
time.
friends after I saw it, but he wasn't home.
Like I've had the same thing all across my Facebook feed, and I'm like, I don't give a shit about your hot take. I don't care. If you liked it, then tell me you liked it. If you didn't like it, I still don't care.
Right.
Like I remember I read a review about one of the new Jurassic Park movies that came out. And I was like, you know what? I like dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are cool. I'm going to go and see a movie about dinosaurs. Woohoo!
Yay!
And the whole review was about how over the top and extreme the CGI was to the point that it ruined the movie. So then I sat there through the whole movie waiting for this super over the top CGI that was going to ruin the movie. But what ruined the movie was that I was sitting there waiting for this over the top CGI that never happened. And I was just like, I don't read reviews anymore.
When you have a property like the Wheel of Time, though, that is so near and dear to so many people's hearts, you're going to have that kind of controversy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jurassic Park falls into a movie buffs, but Wheel of Time, this is, you know, it's what propelled Brandon Sanderson to legendary status. It's Robert Jordan's opus, whatever the hell, and magnum opus. It was, you know, and it's been around so long, and it was considered for so long to be the American Lord of the Rings, and it's so important to people. I think that's why you see such people get so very, very upset if it doesn't live up to their personal expectations. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I'll watch season 2. But, you know, I mean, I can criticize it without being upset.
I think this is the danger of fandom, though, right? Because you say it's beloved by many, but to 99% of the people out on the street, they'll have never heard of it, right? You know, so, you know, the mass audience that you need to watch it on TV haven't got that history. They're just looking for the next Game of Thrones because they love that show, which they didn't read the books of either.
There's
and that's where it comes in.
Daniel Green, who did a comparison with people who didn't read the books, what they thought of that show, and the people who did, and there were wildly different opinions. You know, I mean, the difference was very noticeable. People who had never read the books before, didn't know anything about it, just loved the shit out of every minute of it. Whereas the people who read the books were far more critical.
Yeah. And I just think it's amazing, right? Because it's doing is building a bigger audience for all of us. I grew up as a comic book fancy reading little geek that got made fun of in the playground, right? But now that is mainstream culture. And I talked to my son about, you know, I had to wait 30 years with 3 Star Wars movies. Now there's a show coming out every week. This is like a golden age, and some are going to hit and some are going to miss. But I'm really excited that they're all coming out.
You got girls playing Dungeons and Dragons. Where were these girls when I was a teenager?
Right around my house.
It's interesting though that, you know, we live in a society that where, especially right now, where everything externally is shit, that we have emotional response, deep emotional connection and responses to media, to I mean, stories are obviously very emotionally connected, I mean, throughout human history, but like, especially now, it's just like, it's rough that the only thing you have going is like whether this new Spider-Man movie is going to be good or not. Like that's, and when they drop the ball, like it devastates people, and it's just like, Lord, Spider-Man, you know, it was good though. I'll give my thumbs up on that. It's just sad.
But
it was too sad for me.
I was saying the fandom, it does get dangerous in that, like, you've got things like, you remember when Firefly was cancelled?
Yeah.
And everyone went absolutely nuts, and then they brought out the film on it. And if they were to carry on that series now, even with all the original cast, you'd still have the entire fandom going, no, they've screwed it up again.
Mm-hmm. And it does come back to what you know, and this happens with books. And I'm sure that all of you have got reviews that do exactly the same thing. You can look at this review here that says this character, I mean, I get it. This character is far too mature for their age. And then I've got someone else saying this character is far too immature. And I'm like, you can't both be right.
Oh, yeah. I've been accused of shilling for the Christian right and being anti-Christian, all in the same book.
Exactly. So, you know, you have to try and find, like,
that we're right.
To everybody, I guess, is where it all comes down to. And there's a point at which you have to say, like we were talking about before, we're writing the book that we want to write, we're writing the story we want to write, and we're using the tropes that we want to use. If you want to come on that ride, you're welcome.
Oh man, tell you.
I will say this: all the negative reviews I've ever gotten, they at least finished the book. Just to hate review it.
Well, ever so often, I will get one of the true crazies will send me a review, and here's one that truly will screw with your head. Let's see if I can find it here. I've left it on starred reviews. I kept it, and I've kept it for years, which is why. I want to say this. Fuck you, because you cannot write a book that be it and that be it. You have to say fuck you to all of us and say, mwah, I'm going to write this book and big long number. Others like it. This is what I say to you. Write all the sequels you want. I will read your first work, then never again, because you screw me over. The first is the last because of greed. That is an actual review I received.
But then the amount of reviews that people are getting because Amazon screwed up and the postman damaged the delivery.
I had a 1 star that said, "Don't buy this book. A page fell out when I was reading it." You know what you're like. You know you can return that if you want. They will send you another copy.
Oh my goodness.
I don't even hardly. I don't worry about it anymore. I mean, after a while, after so many reviews, you just it stops bothering you.
You stop caring. It's like,
Yeah.
You stop trying to figure out what was going through some of these people's heads when they read the book.
Well, I got this one guy that's been buying my books for 10, 12 years now. Writes me a 1-star review on every book I've ever written. And I'm like, why do you keep doing this to yourself, man? You know what I mean? This is like
some people are masochists.
I was like, certified purchase, verified purchase. And I'm like, why? I mean, I'm not going to get any better, obviously.
But you're getting his money. It's fantastic.
Thank you for your money.
Yeah, thank you.
But hey, I'll take his money. That's fine. You want to buy my book, then you say whatever. You buy my book, you say whatever you want about it. I don't care. You know what I mean?
It's yours to do with whatever you want. Use it as a fucking doorstop for all I care.
Hey, I don't even care if you don't read my book. As long as you buy the book, it's fine. That's
right.
Yeah, if you don't read it, you're just
sit on your TBR pile, and that's fine. That's good.
Yeah. Or if you follow Joe Abercrombie on Twitter, he does his 1-star reviews, which are
Rob Hayes posted his as well, and they're very entertaining.
Yeah. My friend Brian Durfee did the same thing recently.
Yeah,
and they're like, I didn't order this book, but I got it anyway.
For like the new authors out there, I'd advise you don't use reviews as a way to improve your writing.
No.
Don't do that. I definitely made that mistake in the beginning because I was so hungry for like any feedback. And I used to think like so long and hard about these reviews. Like, what does this person mean? What are they talking about? I definitely didn't do this. It's the fastest way to drive yourself crazy. So don't do it. Don't do it.
The way I see it, the good ones are all genius people, and I love them. The bad ones, you know, I've read somewhere. I'm just like, I don't recognize the book you're talking about. You know, you almost want to think, you know, is it mine? Because that didn't happen. But you know, they're just mistaken. And all the people that love it are people with great taste and fantastic.
Well, someone complained that there was too many mythological creatures in a book that I wrote that they thought was historical.
I thought yours were. They really happened, didn't they?
Fantasy book with the magic and the dragons.
Oh. Okay, I've been doing this a long time, so I've been called every kind of son.
I've been to Australia. I know what it's like there.
But to everyone watching, we're not complaining about reviews. Give us more of them.
No, it's true. Even the 1-star, anything.
Even the bad ones, like honestly, I mean, sometimes they're entertaining to read, and you know, Give the book
Well,
a
they
go.
can be
That's all
informative.
I ever ask of anybody is just give the book a go. And if you don't enjoy it, then that's fine. But
Well,
it wasn't
they
for
can
you.
definitely be informative to other readers, but then you look on Goodreads sometimes, and this you'll have somebody that they have an average rating of like 1.5, and I'm like, have you ever read anything you liked? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
It's a way for them to feel important.
Yeah, but look,
They can.
I'm fine with it,
there's
you know?
really popular stuff that I really don't like, and that's cool. Everyone likes different things, you know. I hate coffee, right? Most popular drink in the world, and I hate it. You know, if I write a review on coffee, I'd be, you know, this makes me want to throw up. That's what makes books brilliant. There's something for everyone.
Oh, I agree. Because it didn't bother me. As the years have gone by, it stopped bothering me. I rarely look anymore. You know, I'll look at sales. You know, how many people are buying the book? You know, I mean,
honestly, that's what you have to focus on is sales. Yeah, just ignore the reviews. I don't even open Goodreads like now because it kind of drives you crazy. Like if you're always checking the reviews.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I've seen people drive themselves absolutely batshit over it. You know, instead of get a complex and start getting afraid to write anything because somebody said something negative, and I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. Tolkien gets bad reviews. The greatest writers on the planet get bad reviews. You cannot let that worry you. You can't let it bother you. Everybody gets them. Who the hell are you to think you're not going to get a bad review? You know what I mean?
You know, the older I get and the more
there's going to be a lot of them.
I think Salinger had it right. Like, just go off in the woods and just disappear. That's kind of where I'm at. I'll just go. I don't care what other people have to say. Like, if they like it, awesome. I appreciate it. But aside from that, like, it's become more therapy for me than actual. I can't make money at this shit. At least enough. Might as well just, you know, do what I want.
Yeah.
Okay, people, we're down to under 10 minutes here. Can I get you to pimp some books? Alicia, you've got one coming out today?
So, Blood of Heirs is free right now on Kindle all over the world. Legacy of Ghosts, which is book 2, is on sale, 99 cents in the UK and the US. And Emperor of Shadows, the last book in the trilogy, has just come out today. So it's hot, steamy hot, just come off the press. Get it in your eye holes.
We should have displays behind us with them.
Oh,
All the way through.
No, it wasn't that organized.
Well, I haven't got anything on sale, right? So pay full price for We Are the Dead. Heartwarming tale of death and destruction. The follow-up, A Fool's Hope, is also full price, available wherever you buy your books. And the third book, Until the Last, is coming out on July 6th. I think it is, as long as the publisher can get paper. So that's all good.
Okay,
thing's
my turn.
Ryan.
Yes. See what I did there?
Get out of the way.
No, your head's in the way.
Okay, Brian, quick question. What actually is behind you?
That is the second book in the Sorcerer's Song series called A Chorus of Fire. Book 1,
Okay,
Bard's Blade.
What's your actual real background?
Oh, just a window.
Okay.
There was a blind there at one point earlier on.
Yeah, there's a brick wall as well.
Well,
okay.
Hey, it put the option up there. I just took advantage of it. Anyway, the Swords Elegy is coming out, and I'll be the final book in the series that I wrote with Tor Books. That's coming out in November of this year. It'll be the final one in that series. You can get all my books. Most of my indie stuff is on Kindle Unlimited, and it's all available in audio, all the formats. I have next month, February, I think the 13th, I have Talos coming out, which is the audiobook is through Blackstone Publishing. And you can get the Goblin Chronicles, Dragon Vein. Dragon Vein's a lot of fun because it was a top 5 finalist for Fantasy Book of the Year on Audible in 2015. So that's a lot of fun. That's a sci fantasy. And yeah, just buy some of my books, random books. I got 20 some odd books I've written. Certainly there's one out there for you.
Nice.
Okay, and we've run out of time. Too many books, Brian. Zamil, what have you got for us?
If you want a totally free book, you can get this. It's a prequel to Gunmetal Gods. It's like a 100-page novella. You can get it for free if you join my mailing list at zamilakhtar.com. So that's actually a good way to get into the world since it's totally free. And I don't care if you join and unsubscribe immediately. Just get this book. It's free. And
Your covers are amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
They're gorgeous.
Miblart, the designer, they do a great job. So just a shout out to them. And Gunmetal Gods is $2.99 on Amazon. It's also on Kindle Unlimited, so you can read it for free if you have Kindle Unlimited. Yeah, and it's the book 1 of the series of the same name, Gunmetal Gods. I'm currently working on the third book. The second book is already out. So yeah, hope you guys check it out.
Sean.
Yeah, so Watch Dogs, Stars and Stripes. What's that?
You look like your screen had frozen there for a second.
Oh no, I'm just really stoned. No, Smoke Eaters, all the books are out. The last in the trilogy came out this summer. That was called Fighters. Watch Dogs, Stars and Stripes comes out April 5th of this year.
Have you got one there?
No. I don't have any books with me, but you can. I don't know. Google me.
You're letting us down, Sean.
I don't even have a background like Brian.
I know.
Smoke Eaters.
I have to work out how to do that.
Well, you go to where it says Cam and Mike. It'll say virtual background, and then you just click on virtual background. You can use the two that they have there, or you can upload one.
Excellent. Okay.
Well, damn.
Right. My turn, I suppose. I have The Fall of Phoenix, which is based on the fall of Troy, and A Hero's Welcome, which is the follow-up of what happened some people after Troy. Fantasy or historical fiction, it's been debated. And they're all available on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited, all of that.
Huzzah!
Amazing. Well, thank you for doing a brilliant job, Daniel. You've been incredible.
Thank you, Dan.
So being quiet in the background. I just let you chat. Zamil, sorry?
I was just answering his question. That's.
You enjoying your potato ice cream, or are you
Mike? Huh?
Hey, someone asked in the chat, Zamil, which books do you read first in your series?
Oh, I said.
On mine?
Whose series? Mine?
Yeah, yours. Yeah, which
okay,
book comes first?
So you can read either Gunmetal Gods or Death Rider first. The stories aren't directly related. The prequel is more like a separate story. So either way.
Excellent.
Awesome, Tiferous. That's a word. All words are made up. Well, I know I've had fun. I'm very, very happy to have met everybody.
Yep.
Likewise.
Yeah, me too. This is great.
Yeah.
I think I started the introduction to the books about 2 minutes early.
2 minutes.
2 minutes early.
Brian, Brian, tell us about a couple more of your books.
I tell you what, if you want a recent example of my writing, The Bard's Blade is the best place to start. That's that is probably the most developed story, the most intricate story. Dragon Vein is very adult. If you're going to get into it, there's some harsh shit in there. The Goblin Chronicles, first one is young adult, so it's good for all ages. A little violence, but the sex is fade to black. Not in, Akiri, adult. I did that with Stephen Saville, who I think Sean knows Stephen.
Steve Sappel?
Stephen Saville, yeah.
Oh yeah. Also, Dan, I found some stuff.
Oh,
So-
good.
Shame if we didn't get to see that cover because I like that one.
Well, thank you.
That
And there's
looks
Ash
Looks like
Kickers.
fire service.
Yeah, that's a good cover.
Flame
Okie
Raiders.
dokie.
Okay, can I thank everybody for being here?
No.
I think we're going to get cut off any second. So,
Please.
yeah, thank you everybody and thanks David and TBRCon.
Yeah. Thanks,
Fabulous.
David.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Hasta la pasta.